It is a midsummer edition of Canzano and Wilner, the podcast. And actually, I think we are recording the day of the MLB All-Star game now that I think about it. I am Jon Wilner, WilnerHotline.com. He is John Canzano at JohnCanzano.com. And he is also Bald-Faced Truth, man of the people. You got a lot going on this week, and it's much more important than college sports for sure.
Yeah.
Tell everybody what's going on up there.
Well, I mean, you and I both, we talk about this all the time. Like we're way into our jobs and what we do, and we love what we do. But I often think, like, do I really help the world by reporting and writing? You know, are we making the world a better place? But one of the things that we have done is we've launched the Bald-Faced Truth Foundation. It's a 501c3. And our big event of the year is a summer camp for special needs and typical kids. It's the 12th year that we've done it. It is a sports camp. We get a lot of college athletes, college football players, basketball players who come out and volunteer to be team leaders. Adidas sponsors the camp, and it's a big, big deal. Jamba Juice sponsors as well. Big League Chew is a sponsor.
Nice.
All that, all my favorite things are out there, but it's just a really cool thing to see a bunch of kids running around and having fun and making friends and building relationships. So yes, we're busy, but it's good for the soul.
Yeah, I bet. Now, the college kids that come out and help, you can pay them or reward them now, right?
Yeah. And we have done we've had some sponsors come up and say, hey, can we do a little NIL deal for some of these college kids? And I said, hey, that's between you and the kids. Like, if you want to throw them $500 for working the camp for the week, it's not why the kids are out there. But we did have a couple of sponsors in the last couple of years who have come in and said, hey, we want to support the kids that are out there and volunteering. And at the end of the week, those college football players, and there are a lot of Portland State football players that are out there, Lewis and Clark Division III football players that are out there, community college kids that are out there, University of Portland, women's soccer team is volunteering for a day. So is the University of Portland basketball team and the Portland State men's basketball team. So they all come out and they kind of come together. But for them at the end to get a little check is probably not the worst thing either, because you understand that their time is valuable and they sort of see it as gravy. And I'll tell you this, those football players, they come out and they're out there at 8:00 in the morning setting up every day for the camp, and they're there all day long. It's hot, but a lot of energy, man. It's all about energy, relationships. They're just pouring themselves into those kids. And I think it's a lot of fun.
It's fantastic. Great thing you guys do every year. Fantastic.
Yeah.
What's going on, man? Want to talk about?
Let's start with the news of the week or the day, or, I don't know how impactful this is, but mediation with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. Pac-12 with a filing. It looks like they were unable to, at least in the last round, come to an agreement on the mediation front. Looks like, what will probably happen here is that, the court's getting an update here through this filing on what did or didn't happen with the Mountain West and the Pac-12. And now the Mountain West's motion to dismiss that poaching penalty lawsuit will likely end up in court, and a judge will rule either to dismiss or not dismiss. Simply, I've been told by litigators, Wilner, that the judge is likely to deny that motion to dismiss, and that what that will do is spark another round of potential settlement talks, even because now everybody's position gets a little more cemented depending on how the judge rules on that. What are you thinking about? What are you looking at right now?
Yeah, so it is July 15th, and this is the day that the stay expires. Right? They asked for an extension of the stay 60 days ago. It expires today, so that's why we're anticipating at some point that there will be a filing that basically says we're back in court, we're back to litigation. What do I expect? I think that they will certainly get through that hearing, which I think is going to end up being in September. That's my guess.
Yeah.
And then after that, then it's going to probably get a little bit tricky, right? They'll see, as someone said to me, both sides need to see a few more cards from the opposition. What do you got, right? Mm-hmm. And my guess is I still don't think there's any chance it's going to end up in a trial, right? The university presidents do not want that. And so I'm guessing that there will be a settlement at some point in the fall, but clearly, this situation has not impacted the Pac-12 getting the media deal with CBS, adding Texas State, right? They've been able to go forward with those things. I don't know if anything is on hold necessarily because of the mediation. It doesn't seem like it. Same thing with the Mountain West. They got to get a TV deal done here soon. So what do you think? You seeing any impacts on this long-term strategy from this mediation stalemate?
Oh, I think a couple things. I think about UNLV a lot because I think they're in the middle of this in their own way. And, I was looking at this thinking, gosh, maybe the Pac-12 dragged its feet a little bit on mediation because they needed the possibility of UNLV to be out there as they negotiated with Texas State. Maybe the Mountain West similarly, dragged its feet a little bit because, they didn't want UNLV to become a stalking horse in this thing. I don't know. But the litigators I've reached out to agree with you. They do not think this is going to go to a trial. They think ultimately it'll be settled. But this motion to dismiss is big because if the judge comes in, obviously if the judge dismisses the case, that's end of case. And, the Pac-12 is on the hook for $55 million in poaching penalties. But if the judge doesn't dismiss, now you've got a real, I think, motivation from the Mountain West to come to the table in a meaningful way because there's significant risk here because there's not just risk that they're going to get nothing in the poaching penalties. There are additional penalties that a judge can assign in a antitrust case, and it is triple penalty. So presumably, as it's been explained to me, the going rate for a non-conference football game was, give or take $500,000, $600,000 a year to buy a football game in 2024. The Mountain West charged the Pac-12 schools, those two Pac-12 schools, $2 million each. So you got $1.5 million or so that they charged those schools that was over market rate. The potential exists for a judge to come in and say, hey, that 1.5 million times 3 times 12 is additional penalties that the Mountain West could owe the Pac-12. So I think, basically what we're getting here on July 15th is, you're punting and you're going to see what the judge is going to do. And I think you're right. I think it's sometime around September 9th that we would see this thing land in front of a judge with a hearing. And then if that motion to dismiss is denied, I do think the sides will come back together and talk settlement again. Further, Wilner, you've got the exit fees lawsuits from Boise State, Utah State, Colorado State. You've got those exit fee lawsuits. There was no settlement there either, apparently. So everything is ongoing. I don't know where the Mountain West is going to get the money. I think Gloria Nevarez, the Mountain West Conference Commissioner, is fighting the best she knows how to fight. But I think there's a significant risk here for the Mountain West that if they can't land the plane in mediation, that, UNLV and Air Force, maybe to the American, UNLV, maybe to the Pac-12, Air Force to the American, I think those things are on the table if the Mountain West doesn't have the money.
Yeah, because unlike the Pac-12, the Mountain West has no media deal that we know of, right? Pac-12 at least has got CBS as the primary partner. Mountain West has nothing at this point. It seems like there's some pressure on the Pac-12 right now to get through the hearing in September without the judge dismissing the case. And if that happens, if the judge does not dismiss it, then all the pressure shifts to the Mountain West.
Yeah, 100%. Let's pivot a little bit to the rearview mirror. Big 12 media days happened in Texas. Set the scene there. Was that at Dallas Cowboys practice facility? What was the deal? You were there.
As a fan of the team in Washington, D.C., lifelong fan of the team in Washington, D.C., it hurt a little bit to walk into that place and see the star. It's at the Frisco, which is a suburb of Dallas, Jerry Jones's little Taj Mahal, the Cowboys facility. And they had it indoors, and it was a great event. And they do a fantastic job. Big 12 did a fantastic job. It's a perfect layout, not like some of the deals the Pac-12 used to do back in the day where it's all cramped and you had to take 2 flights of stairs and an elevator and all that. Big 12 did a fantastic job. The fact that it was at the Cowboys facility hurt me personally, but I can live with it. The big thing to me was Brett Yormark coming out strong, opening remarks. They are the first of the 4 power conferences to have their media event in July. He comes out strong, says, I'm doubling down on 5+11 for the college football playoff model.
We continue to believe the 5-11 model proposed by the Big 12 and the ACC is the right playoff format for college football. We want to earn it on the field. We do not need a professional model because we are not the NFL. We are college football, and we must act like it. There is nothing in sports like college football, and we must protect what makes it special and do what's right for the fans and the game.
And that kind of sets the narrative for the rest of the month. Sankey had to address it today or yesterday. And, Petiti and Phillips are going to have to address it as well. Big 12 was smart to take advantage of their opening position and go strong on the playoff. There was some talk about certainly ASU's situation, completely different than last year when they were picked last. And now they're coming in as a favorite, defending champs. Everybody knows, Dillingham. Everybody knows Sam Levitt, Jordan Tyson. ASU was kind of basking in it, which they should. A lot of talk about Texas Tech and their supposed, $50 million roster, and Cody Campbell, their billionaire backer, was there. So a lot going on, and now we've got the SEC this week, and then Big Ten, ACC are next week.
Yeah, I think too. Yormark's comments, I think, welcome by everybody but the Big Ten and the SEC. And I think, it's the kind of stuff I think that can galvanize the rest of college football. You need a voice out there. You need somebody to lead that. I'm glad Yormark's saying the stuff that needs to be said. And I think, there's a lot of, and he pointed out it's not in his best interest.
Right.
Of course, he said, hey, we could grab the extra berth if we're going to do automatic qualifiers. But he said, sort of that greater good, again, addressed.
Yep.
Someone has to be looking out for the greater good. And I'm glad that, there's a voice out there that is advocating for that. And you're right. It was strategic to go early and to go strong. And so and I think it'll be interesting to see what Tony Petiti says at Big Ten Media Day in Las Vegas. If we can pivot there right now.
You're a fan of the model where there's 11 at-large bids?
I am, because I just think it needs to be earned on the field. I mean, give your automatic conference champions should get in, but earn it on the field. I mean, let's not. And here's the thing: like the Big Ten and the SEC, they're gonna grab the vast majority of those berths anyway by virtue of just if they're good enough. And so I do think you have to trust the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, right? This is what we wanted. We didn't want computers picking the teams, but let's settle it on the field. I don't think if you start codifying the berths, then it defeats the purpose of playing the regular season. Like let's play it out. Let's see what conferences are strong. Let's see which teams are great. And it's bound to get talked about in Vegas as So Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA. Last year was their first appearance with Big Ten Media Day in Indianapolis. Now this event's in Vegas. Wilner, are they going to announce? Is the Big Ten going to announce that they're moving their championship events to Vegas, or is this just putting a pinky toe in Vegas?
I think it's a little bit of a pinky toe, and they may bring this event back, but they're signed up for the football championship game to be in Indianapolis. I think all the way through the decade. I might be through 28 or 29. So they, it's smart of them. They held their business meetings in Southern California recently. And they're having this event in Vegas. That's smart, but I don't see the football championship game moving anytime soon, or probably the basketball tournament, right? You still have got 14 schools on the other side of the Rockies. So this is a way to kind of say, hey, we're not forgetting about you, West Coast, but it's not the biggest event. It should be well attended, though.
You and I will be there in Vegas. We'll do an episode from Vegas. So make sure you're subscribed to this podcast if you want to catch that episode from Las Vegas. I'm interested to see what Oregon's going to do. They put a duck in the river in Indianapolis. What will they do in Vegas? Is it they going to turn the Sphere into an Oregon, Nike or an Oregon emblem? Are they gonna? Is Dan Lanning gonna be on the strip? In a Formula One car? I don't know what Oregon will do, but it'll be something splashy. I'm interested to hear Deshaun Foster talk after last year. Will he come back a little better? Little media training for Deshaun. That was an interesting scene a year ago.
Yeah, it was. Hopefully his people are better prepared him this year.
Yeah. What else? Lincoln Riley's got a lot to talk about. He got grilled a little bit last year. I remember him coming off the podium, and I think he was a little surprised at sort of how the media went at him and asking him, is USC still an upper echelon team? And let's see. I think there's a lot of questions for USC. Certainly Jed Fish in Washington. How much bigger could they be this year? I think they were talking about getting bigger in the trenches. Will Jed talk about that? What else are you looking forward to hearing about and seeing in Vegas?
Well, I am very curious about Petitti's address. He is not nearly as front-facing, as comfortable in public as some of the other commissioners. Yormark does very well on stage, selling what he's selling. And I don't know if anybody watched, Greg Sankey, yesterday, opening SEC Media Day, Sankey was on the podium for an hour. He had his State of the Conference address and he fielded questions. He is so at ease, such a great, whether you agree or disagree with his positions, he has a great command and great perspective on the issues and is very at ease up there. He kind of, teases some of the reporters. Petitti is not like that. He's much more, comfortable off the stage, out of the spotlight, but he has got to come out and explain his position on the playoff. He's only done it once. It's very controversial, right? 13 automatic bids out of 16 spots. The only time he's done it was on Joel Klatt's podcast. Klatt is very good, but he is Fox, and Fox is obviously partnered with the Big Ten. So it was a very favorable place for Petitti to speak. He's going to have to field some questions next week, and they're not, probably some of them are going to be pretty pointed, and I'm very curious to see how he handles it, whether he is able to explain to the college football public why it is good to have 13 bids locked up for conferences before the first game is played. It's a radical proposal, and it actually has merit on a lot of levels. But he has not done a good job explaining it. They haven't done a good job selling it. And he's got to do that next week.
Yeah, that's part of what you have to do as a conference commissioner, right? There's the actual functional stuff that you handle behind the scenes and with your own campuses and the university presidents, your CEO board, so to speak. And then there's the public-facing piece where you have to go out and sell this thing. Now, last year, it was Petitti's first time, his first Big Ten football media days. We both had one-on-ones with him. I recorded that one-on-one and I said, hey, look, I want to replay this on radio. And he was initially uncomfortable with it. Like he was, wait a minute, this is a print interview. And I find that very interesting from a guy from the broadcast world that he was uncomfortable with it. And then I eventually convinced him to allow me to air it on radio, but he only did so reluctantly, I think, because he was initially just like, wait a minute, we're not doing that kind of an interview. But I do think it's important for people to hear it in his voice and his words and him, the passion behind it, or maybe the logic behind it as he has to explain it. So that'll be good to see as well with Big Ten football media days in Vegas. The Pac-12, they're not going to Vegas.
No,
they're not really going anywhere. Their plan is to do something more localized with Oregon State and Washington State, right around Corvallis and Pullman, with local media. I think this is a good idea. I initially was like, wait a minute, you're not having like a big media day. But last year, Wilner, was very different, right?
Yes.
They wanted people to know they weren't going away. Everybody knows they're not going away now. They're going to do something bigger for 2026. I think they should try to piggyback on Big 12 or Big 10 media days in 2026. I think they need to be in Las Vegas.
Yep.
And they need to be splashy and, they need to come out firing for 26. But 25, I think this is the right call, because you run the risk that not as many media show up. It looks like a dinky event if you're not getting sort of that national glow.
Yep.
And I think it's the right call to kind of focus on media rights, focus on mediation, get all that stuff done, play some football games, and then really focus on 2026.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. The Mountain West has got theirs this week, I believe, and the new schools aren't. It's not like the incoming schools would go to the Pac-12 media days.
No,
right? They're not members yet. So, I think
you run a risk. There's like 8 people in the room. Like I just think. Because I just don't know if the national media are as interested in the second year of Oregon State and Washington State playing a non-traditional schedule. And so I think it's the right call.
Right. Especially when there's not there's not a threat of dissolution, right? We know that the conference is a year from now, it's going to be up and running with 9 schools, 10 schools. We don't know how many schools, do we? We're still waiting on that piece.
Yeah. Well, I'm still in the camp where I believe that they are trying to add a football only member at this point, and they're looking for somebody who makes sense. Like they don't feel like they have to reach. I think Teresa Gould, if people missed her appearance on this podcast in the last episode, grab that episode and watch it. I mean, it's blowing up as people are, because I think Teresa did a good job of sort of explaining that like she's sleeping now. They don't feel like they have to overreach.
Yep.
They've got they've got compliance. They are reconstituted as a conference. And now it is about additive value and making playing chess at this point. There's no desperation from the Pac-12.
But how many schools are on that list? It's a short list. Right?
I think it's a short list. And I think you also need to know what's going on with UNLV and Air Force and mediation. Because, that is a natural fit if the Mountain West Conference could not fulfill their promise to UNLV. Suddenly now UNLV will be like, well, wait a minute. We don't have an invitation for the Big 12. They're on hold like Gonzaga was forever. They're trying to get to the Big 12. But, I don't see the Big 12 extending themselves right now to UNLV or anybody else. But, the Pac-12's got to look at Memphis. There's a potential there. Could UConn play as a football only member? Could it be UTSA? Certainly Rice and UTSA would come cheaper than Memphis. So I just think, you need at least maybe one more helps you with scheduling. Maybe 2 more helps you with scheduling. I don't know. Yeah. But I think they're looking for what makes sense at this point, and they're not desperate to get it.
I guess UConn makes sense if you can, if you can forge a guarantee that you're going to get 4 or 5 basketball games, men's and women's basketball games, then maybe you look into it, right? Because that would be such a huge value add for the Pac-12.
And I keep thinking too, there's these schools, these Pac-12 schools, these new look Pac-12 schools, they have things in common. They all have a chip on their shoulder.
Yes.
They were dissed, they were overlooked, they've been discounted by the rest of the world, and even Gonzaga. People look over and say, well, your time has passed, or what. Boise State, oh, you're great, but we would not want to be in the same conference as you. There's a chip on the shoulder of these schools. UConn kind of got dealt dirty too. Its own conference had a very similar fate to what happened to the Pac-12, and so maybe there's a little synergy there that will blossom. But I keep looking at Rice and UTSA also saying, you could bring them in from a football only capacity, play more games in the state of Texas. And I certainly think mediation with the Mountain West and Pac-12 could change UNLV's mindset.
Yeah, which suggests that this thing could drag on for 2 more months, probably at 3 even.
Yeah, I want to talk about one last thing here. The NCAA tournament.
Yes.
We saw the Division I committees in both the men's and women's basketball essentially put expansion on hold. What is going on with that in your mind? Are they expanding this tournament to 72 or 76? What are they doing?
Well, I think if they do expand, they will expand to 76. They might as well, right? I also think we are very close to the point of no return for expanding it for the upcoming season, for March of 26. At this point, I'm thinking it's not going to get done in time for March of 26, which means will they expand for 27, 28? I think that's, to me, that's almost a done deal.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting the money right, and that's a big piece of it, right? We had Stu Jackson on earlier in the spring, and Stu said, the West Coast Conference commissioner, he'd be in favor of expansion as long as the money's right. They don't want to reduce the size of the revenue splits if they add schools. They want everybody's revenue split to basically stay the same. The value of each unit, which is right now $360,000 per game played, they don't want that shrinking. So CBS and Turner need to come up with more money. They got to come up with enough money to cover 8 new schools, basically. I think that's a big part of the holdup. Also, I think that there's a huge amount of backlash in the public, and they are sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants it to expand, right?
No.
I mean,
I don't want it to expand. Like, as you're talking about this, I'm going, no. I don't. This tournament is perfect. It is one of the few things that the NCAA members get right.
Yeah.
64 was the number. It's great. We all know it's at 68 now, but what do we still do? We fill out that bracket like it's a 64-team tournament. We don't really, and we watch the plan or we pay attention to the plan, but we consider this one sheet of paper, 64 teams.
Yeah.
They can go to 72. They can go to 76. They can go to 80, 84, whatever they want to do to try to include more Power 4 members, because we all know that's what it's about. But in the end, Wilner, we will all start paying attention on that Thursday when the ball goes up in the air and there are 64 teams playing, because this tournament was beautiful and perfect as is. Here's a crazy idea. Why not just keep it at 64 and let the teams all go play in the NIT who don't make it? Like, what was wrong with this system before? It wasn't broken. They are going to ruin this. They're trying really hard to ruin this by including more teams, and they're not going to be the kinds of teams we want to see play.
No, the teams that are going to get in are the 19 and 12, 8th, 9th place team in the Big Ten or in the Big 12, right? It's not going to be the second place team in the Missouri Valley. That would be an exciting, Cinderella. And, you mentioned one thing that it's obviously a secondary consideration. But if they do expand by 8, there's going to be a lot more games in the quote unquote first 4. Yeah. And if you think about how much the office pools used to be on paper, now it's all done digitally, how much of a role they play in the mainstream appeal of the tournament, right? People who don't care about college basketball care about the tournament partly because they're office pool. Well, if all of a sudden you got, 12 teams or 16 teams playing on Tuesday and Wednesday, the office pool deadline has been like Wednesday night, I think, right? Now, are they going to change the office pool deadline because you have so many teams playing on Tuesday and Wednesday? Everybody's got to get their pool in on Monday. That's a very small thing, but that can have an impact on the public's involvement and engagement with the tournament. They got to be so careful on so many fronts with this thing. It's like a national treasure to a greater extent than the college football playoff, for sure. Yeah. And they can't screw it up. They cannot screw it up. And
they will. They're going to ruin it. They're going to ruin it. And look, I think, we all look at the Final Four, we go, wow, that's special. And of course, the national championship is special. And one shining moment playing at the end is special. But you know what else is special? It's Florida Gulf Coast getting to the Sweet 16. It's St. Joseph's getting to the Sweet 16. And they are threatening those kinds of programs by saying, hey, we're going to go to 72 or go to 76. They're going to make those teams play more games. They're going to try to squeeze those teams out of the bracket. We saw it in the last round where, more of the mid-majors were left out than before. It's not right. It's not good. This is not what America wants. This is not even what TV wants, because people tuned in to know and understand Florida Gulf Coast and St. Joseph's. And those are great stories. And it's part of what makes that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of the opening weekend so special. Yeah. It's the mid-majors. And then, we get down to the Final Four, and then it becomes about, who's really going to win this thing. But I'm just shaking my head and cringing, because I just know, like a lot of people out there, I just know they're going to screw this up, Wilner. They're going to mess up what was a beautiful 64-team tournament.
Yep. Yep. It's clearly there's a lot more. You think about how both postseasons are under, being considered for expansion. I think there's a lot more pushback on expanding March Madness than there is expanding the CFP.
Yeah. Well, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast so you don't miss a thing. We're going to be back next week from Las Vegas, where Wilner's going to be doubling down at the blackjack table, and we'll have an interview from the scene. And make sure that you like and subscribe. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks very much, everybody.